निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्वसे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा। Okay, so revise some points from yesterday.
So we started with this Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe verse. So Prabhupada gives an example how the body is continuously changing like a film spool. It appears that the pictures are changing, but they are actually different images. So at present also we can see how the body is changing, because the body which it was 10 years earlier, it's not the same body. The body has completely changed. It's very logically, it's very easy to realize that body is continuously changing.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Then we'll heard about that tolerance. That there will be some ups and downs. There will be situations. So we may change the situations, but the problem will be same. The nature of problem may change. So better to tolerate, and when you tolerate, the mode of goodness increases. Otherwise, mode of passion and ignorance comes.
Okay, good.
Difference of Abrahma Bhuvana Loka.
Okay, good.
Yesterday we discussed that in mode of goodness, one is attached to duty, and in mode of ignorance and passion, one can't be steady in his practices. And in transcendental goodness, one is above that is attached to pleasure of Krishna.
Correct. Okay, good.
We discussed about how soul is immeasurable, although it's mentioned as 1/10 there, and then how it is immovable. Although we see that it moves, how it is immovable.
What does meaning?
As far as immovable is concerned, they said that the position of soul being in Sachidananda Vigraha, that doesn't change. That
the Swarup doesn't change.
The Sthan doesn't change. That's why it is called as immovable.
Swarup.
Verse 2.16 that Darshi says. So we discussed that how Krishna is even referring to Guru Sadhu and Shastra. He keeps that point.
Right. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So in 2.14 verse, you discussed about that why we should tolerate. So we saw different reasoning from different devotees. And in the last you told that one thing also should convince us that seeing the materialist, we can get convinced that how they are so fixed, they are doing so much austerity. Why? Because they know that by getting their goal, their sense gratification desire would be fulfilled. Right. So similarly, spiritualists also should be convinced about their goal, that ultimate pleasure they'll get.
Good.
And one more point. Krishna in 2.26 verse tells Arjuna from other side, like an atheistic philosophy, that okay, I have told you so many reasons to believe that soul cannot be cut or destroyed, but even if you think that soul does not exist, then also you can like kill others.
So what are the points?
For being a non-believer, like soul cannot be killed. Like if you consider it is all like body only, then anyway we'll have to take birth again. Means anything which comes into existence, that has to be dead. So considering
after-
that, you can consider, okay, it has to be died, so why not in your by your hands?
And
like
after
that?
that, there'll be birth.
Birth, yes,
Hmm.
again birth would be there.
Okay, that's one point. What are the other points?
In 17th verse, 27.
In continuation of the same discussion. So what are the atheistic philosophies Krishna is speaking to convince Arjuna to fight?
Karmavad philosophy.
That is one karmavad he has told. What are the other
and
two?
law of conservation of energy.
Law of conservation. What is that?
Like suppose building is there, so if I can make it powder, so it is just changing the form, but the earth element remains same.
Right. So it's only a question of manifestation and unmanifestation, but the energy or the things remain as it is.
Same.
Okay. And one more?
One more is Vaidism, Buddhist philosophy. So basically, if goal is making everything zero, then why we don't have to basically work hard? So that one point.
Okay. And what is the other point Prabhupada gives?
Just like if the body is made of some chemicals, soul is not there. So why to worry because of the loss of some chemicals?
Yes, that's right. Okay. Okay, some other points?
We discussed about that verse whether soul is neither the slayer nor slayed. Then if that is so, then why can't we kill someone or something? And we discussed about we have no right interfering someone's karma.
Yeah, one more point that we discussed was there are three things required to understand the concept of soul.
Correct. What are they?
To read the scripture, especially Bhagavad Gita, as it is, to understand it as it is. Second is penances or austerities and sacrifices. Third is causeless mercy of a pure devotee.
Yes. So those are the factors by which we can actually not only just theoretically understand, but actually realize the presence of the soul and act on the soul platform. Okay, so it's not simply a theoretical understanding, but it is realization. Otherwise, theoretical devotees know, so many other people also know. Okay, so now we'll proceed ahead to the next section. So in this section, which argument of Arjuna did Krishna defeat?
Compassion.
Who's online? Somebody's online? Today 4 devotees are online. Okay, fine. So, so the argument of compassion was defeated. Now Krishna goes on to defeat the next reason which Arjuna gives. That is, what's the next reason Arjuna gives for not fighting? Yes, loss of enjoyment. So that he's essentially defeating by this section from 31 to 38, and that is Karma Kand. 31. Swadharmam api chaveksha na vikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yuddha shreyonya. No, ये गड़बड़ है. Dharmyadhi yuddha shreyo anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Purport.
Out of the 4 orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration is called Kshatriya. Kshat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called Kshatriya. Trayate is to give protection. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system has been followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriyas of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are especially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyas or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor or principle. In the religious law books, it is stated, Ahaveshu mithonyanyam jigham santo mahikshita yuddhamanha param shaktya swargam yante aparan mukha yajneshu pashavo brahman hanyate satatam vijay samskritah kila mantraischa tepi swargam avapnuvan. In the battlefield, a king or kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving the heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battlefield on religious principles and killing animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence, because everyone is benefited by religious principles involved. The animal sacrificed gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another. And the Kshatriyas killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas, who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of Sadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's Swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashrama Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashrama Dharma, or specific duties in terms of specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life.
Okay. So here Krishna is talking about Swadharma. Swadharmam apichaveksha. So you have to consider what is your Swadharma. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining what is Swadharma. So Swadharma means specific duties, and two types of Swadharma. One is in the conditioned state and other is on the liberated platform. So in the conditioned state, the Swadharma is on the bodily platform, and that is Varnashram system. 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas, that is on the bodily platform. So these are called as conditional duties. Conditional duties, because they're in the conditioned state, they're called as conditional duties. And the other type of Swadharma is on the spiritual platform. They are called as constitutional duties. So that's in relation to the constitutional position of Jiva, and that is being a servant of the Supreme Lord. So as long as one is in the conditioned state, one has to abide by the Varnashram Dharma. Because in the conditioned state, one is influenced by the 3 modes. And so therefore, the influence of the 3 modes has to be used in practices of devotional service. And that's how one gets gradually purified of the influence of the 3 modes. Okay. And so in the conditioned state, one practices both of these dharmas simultaneously. So one practices the conditioned duties as well as the constitutional duties parallelly. But when one comes on the liberated platform, then one can give up the conditioned duties and only practice the constitutional duties. So here, Krishna is telling Arjuna that you are a Kshatriya, your Swadharma is to fight. And so therefore, how can you hesitate to perform your Swadharma? Na vikampitum arhasi. You should not hesitate, because your Swadharma is to fight. And dharmyadi yuddhat shreyo anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So he's saying for the Kshatriya, there is no better shreya than yuddha. Because, of course, in the next verses, then Krishna will explain why the greatest benefit for the Kshatriya is to fight. And as, of course, Prabhupada is explaining the purport that if the Kshatriya, even if he dies on the battlefield, he goes to the heavenly planets. So therefore, Krishna is essentially telling Arjuna that in your Swadharma of fighting, there is great benefit, great Shreya. So now, what is that? He's telling in the next verse, 32. yadrichaya chopapannam swargadvaram apavritam sukina kshatriya partha labhante yuddhamidrisham. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, Yadrichaya. Yadricha means out of its own accord. Even without you asking, you have automatically got an opportunity to fight. So the Kshatriyas are looking for an opportunity to fight. And they're very happy when they get an opportunity. So just like for a sportsman, he's very happy when he gets an opportunity to play. Correct? In the previous days, at least, Brahmanas would be very happy if they would get an opportunity to debate. And Vaishyas will be very happy if they get an opportunity to do business. To illustrate this, Srila Prabhupada tells an incident. So he tells that, I suppose it was in 1942, I think, there was famine in Calcutta. No, sorry, not famine. There was plague. You know, plague, bubonic plague. So plague is a disease which is spread by rats. And so in Calcutta, there was this plague, and so many people were dying. Hundreds of people were dying due to plague. So the municipality announced that because this is spread by rats, we want to finish off all the rats. And so anyone who brings a dead rat, he'll be given a few paisas. So there was one businessman, Vaishya. So he was very poor. He didn't have any business. So when the government made this announcement, so he went and gave some 2-3 dead rats. He got a few paisas. With a few paisas, he went and bought some almonds, badam. Some with few paisas, not even good quality. Some third class quality badam he got. Then that few badam he sold for a little higher price. Then he got some money. Then with that money, he did some other business. In this way, this man, so expert that within few years, he became one of the richest businessmen of Calcutta. Prabhupada tells his name also, I'm forgetting. But how it began? Dead rat. So that is Vaishya. The Vaishya knows how to make money. So expert. So, of course, amongst devotees also sometimes we find those have the Vaishya vritti can very expertly sell books. We have seen some devotees who have this Vaishya vritti. They are so expert in bargaining and bringing down prices of commodities. So in any case, so the point is that Krishna is telling Arjuna, see, you are a Kshatriya, and the Kshatriya is waiting for what? Fighting. So sometimes amongst devotees also we find somebody who has some Kshatriya vritti, then he is waiting to get a chance to do some fighting, some chappal chor is there or something. Now those things don't happen. Some in Kunjaveri these things would happen. That time, early days, there was no watchman, this, that, nothing was there. So the point is that Krishna is telling Arjuna, see, without your asking, now you on its own, yadrichaya, On its own, you have got an opportunity to fight. So, and if you fight, what will be the result? Swargadvaram apavritam. The doors to Swarga will open. So therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna, why are you lamenting? You should be happy. Sukhina. Sukhina Kshatriya Partha. Labhante Yuddham Idrisham. You have got an opportunity to fight. You should be very happy as a Kshatriya. Because now, even if you die, you will be able to go to the heavenly planets. So as Prabhupada writes, for a Kshatriya to be on the battlefield and to become non-violent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parashar Smriti, or the religious codes made Parashar, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is stated, the Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus with religious principles he should rule over the world. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom. And if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. So, Krishna is telling him, if you fight, if you win the war, you win the kingdom, you'll get the kingdom. If you die, you'll go to Swarga. So, where is the loss? Where is the loss? So this is karma kand. Karma kand means what? Profit loss calculation. This is karma kand. If I do this, how much profit I'll get? If I do this, what will be loss? So this is karma kand calculation. 33. So now Krishna is telling him, so in the 32nd verse he told him, what is the benefit of fighting? Now in the 33rd verse he tells him, what if you don't fight? Loss. In the previous verse, benefit, profit. Now next verse he says, what will be the loss? अथ चेत्त्वम् इमं धर्म्यं संग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापम् अवाप्स्यसि. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Okay. So here he is telling him two losses if he doesn't fight. Atachet, if you do not fight. What are the two losses? Yes, one is hitva papam avapyasi. One loss is he'll incur sinful reactions. Second loss is kirtim, he loses kirti. He loses fame as a great fighter. So in this way, Krishna is telling him what is the profit of fighting, what is the loss of not fighting. So in this way, Krishna is now also refuting the third reason of Arjuna for not fighting. What is that? Sinful reactions. So Arjuna was saying by fighting there will be sinful reactions. Now Krishna is saying by not fighting there will be sinful reactions because you are not performing your swadharma. So non-performance of swadharma is also considered sinful. Yes, swadharma means duties. So we were discussing two types of swadharma, conditional duties, constitutional duties. And so therefore, you will see in the Vedic times, people were very much bound by duties. And everyone was very careful to execute their respective duties. Because not performing one's duties, allotted duties, whatever they may be, is actually a cause of sin. So therefore, in the Shastras, of course, we find so many examples, whether it be kings or brahmanas, Vaishyas, Shudras, at all levels you'll find. They were very particular about performing their respective duties. Why? Because when one performs one's duty properly, one gets the benefit. If one does not perform, there is loss. There is sinful reaction. So in the previous verse, Krishna is refuting the second reason of Arjuna for not fighting, that is lack of enjoyment. So you say, where is the loss of enjoyment? You win the war, you enjoy the kingdom. You die on the battlefield, you enjoy Swarga. So where is the lack of enjoyment? And then in this verse, he's also refuting the third reason, that is sinful reaction. And so in this purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, he's talking about how Arjuna was so powerful, he even fought with Lord Shiva. And so everyone knew that he was a great warrior. And so he was credited with so many military certificates from many authorities, including his adoptive father Indra, the Emily king. But if he abandoned the battle, not only would he neglect his specific duty as a Kshatriya, but he would lose all his fame and good name and thus prepare his royal road to hell. In other words, he would go to hell not by fighting, but by withdrawing from battle. And then Krishna is further explaining that, Akirti, Akirtim chapi bhutani katayishyanti te vyayam sambhavitasya chakirti maranad atirichyate. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Okay, read this purport.
Both as friends and philosopher to Arjun, Lord Krishna now gives his final judgment regarding Arjun's refusal to fight. The Lord says, Arjun, if you leave the battlefield before the battle even begins, people will call you a coward. And if you think that people may call you bad names, but that you will save your life by fleeing the battlefield, then my advice is that you would do better to die in the battle. For a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than death. So you should not flee from the fear of your life. Better to die in the battle. That will save you from the ill fame of misusing my friendship and from losing your prestige in the society. So the final judgment of the Lord was for Arjun to die in battle and not withdraw.
So Krishna is saying, Akirtim chavi bhutani. Everyone will speak about your infamy. Nobody will praise you. Everyone will speak of your infamy, and for sambhavitasya chakirti maranadati richate. For a respectable person, and especially for a Kshatriya, dishonor is worse than death. Dishonor is worse than death. So I'm sure most of you know that pastime of how when what? Yudhishthira Arjuna. Tell. Whatever you know. You
That there was some disagreement between Yudhishthira and Arjuna. That time, Yudhishthira tells Arjuna to give up his Gandiva.
Okay, so what is the context? Karna injured Yudhishthira Maharaj, and so therefore, tent. Again?
There was a rule like for Draupadi, one should not enter for 2 years when she is with one husband. The other person out of these 5 brothers, one should not enter in that internal chambers. At that time, for a certain reason, he needed his weapons and armors. So Arjuna entered in the inner chambers of Yudhishthira Maharaj. At that time, when he decided that he wants to, then I think Yudhishthira Maharaj told him something.
And I don't know this.
Okay.
This context is not relevant here.
That's something different. Yes.
This is like
okay, so you tell this what he was telling.
Okay, so when Karna injured Yudhishthira Maharaj, he went to the tent to get ointment to its wounds. So Arjuna saw that Yudhishthira Maharaj is injured, so he followed Yudhishthira Maharaj to the tent. So when Arjuna entered, Yudhishthira Maharaj thought that he has killed Karna, but actually he has not killed Karna. He has just come to see his elder brother, what is his state. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, in anger, he tells him that, what is the use of your being a Kshatriya? I thought you should have killed Karna, but you have come empty-handed, and he speaks some ill-fame.
he specifically says, what is the use of
of
your Gandiva
Gandiva,
bow?
yeah.
Keep it aside, throw it aside.
Yes.
And Arjuna had made a promise, anyone who says to keep the Gandiva, I'll
I will
kill him.
And then once he was about to kill Yudhishthir Maharaj, and then Krishna intervenes in the middle and says, what you are doing, if you kill Yudhishthir, then what is the point of battle only? So then Krishna says, for a Kshatriya, infamy is better than death. So you blaspheme Yudhishthir Maharaj.
Right.
So he starts blaspheming him. But in course, he says, if somebody blasphemes, I will kill that person also. So he starts killing himself. But Krishna again says, no, you blaspheme yourself.
Right.
So in that course.
Correct. Yes. So that's how dishonor is worse than death for a Kshatriya. So therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna, see, if you run away from the battle like this, people will dishonor you. And then what will be more degradable for you? This is worse than death. How can you tolerate? So,
one more question. When like Jayadratha kidnaps Draupadi, that time when he was caught, so he tells the Pandavas, kill me, don't leave me, because but they disfame him, they put 5 shikhas all over his head.
And the same thing was also done to Ashwathama. Yes. Okay, 35. Bhayadranadu paratam mamsyante tvam maharataha yesham chatvam bahu mato bhutva yasyasi laghavam. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Laghavam, lagu means small. They'll consider you insignificant. Purport? हाँ, दो माइक लेकर बैठा है.
But the Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They'll think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. Okay, so Krishna is telling, don't think that people will appreciate that you have run because of compassion, soft-heartedness. Nobody will say like that. What they will say? Oh, this fellow is coward and darpok, therefore he has run away. Nobody will appreciate. 36. Avachavadam shabahun vadishyanti tavahitaha nindantastav samarthyam tato dukkataram nukim. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? So here in all these verses, Krishna is speaking about the loss. What will be the result? What will be the losses if he leaves the battlefields? 37. Hato va prapsisi swargam jitva va bhokshase mahim tasmad uttishta kaunteya yuddhaya kritanishayah. O son of Kunti, either you'll be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. So Krishna is sort of summarizing. So either you will win the kingdom, enjoy the kingdom, or if you die, you'll go to Swarga. So where is the loss? But if you leave, lot of losses. So therefore, better you get up with determination and fight. Okay, Prabhupada's lecture, please read.
Both ways have to fight. You have to fight. Krishna is trying to put Arjuna in the dilemma, this way or that way. You must have to fight. If you think that you are not in the bodily concept of life, then then it is my order. You must fight. If you think that you are in bodily concept of life, then you are a Kshatriya. You must fight. Both ways you have to fight. This is Krishna consciousness.
Krishna's conclusion. Krishna's conclusion is Krishna consciousness. So here, Srila Prabhupada is speaking from the viewpoint of conditional duties and constitutional duties, Swadharma. So he's saying that if you are on the bodily platform, then you are Kshatriya, then you should fight. If you think you're not on the bodily platform, then you follow your constitutional position, and that is obeying Krishna's order. So either way, whether you think you're on the bodily platform or on the liberated platform, either case, you have to fight. So Prabhupada is speaking from that viewpoint.
Priji, if we see the practical application of these verses, it's more focusing on doing one's duty. And as you rightly said, that previous times people were more dutiful. So nowadays, as Kali Yuga is progressing, we don't see people following. It's like
Nobody knows what is one's duty.
yes, nobody knows what is one's duty. So, and in our preaching also, we more focus on constitutional duties rather than conditional duties.
Right.
So, like, and as we are all in a conditioned state, not in a liberated state, that if we just follow our constitutional duties, that will be sufficient. Actually, it is sufficient, but it's for pure devotees. But in conditional state, we have to follow our duties as varnashram also.
Correct.
So how we can like do some
right. So of course, this is a whole topic for discussion later on when we speak of varnashram, both 4th chapter, 18th chapter. But then just to briefly address your question. So yes, so we are performing both. We have our conditional duties and we have our constitutional duties. So like all of us, we are in a certain ashram, correct? So then we're following the duties of that ashram, isn't it? So we are supposed to follow the duties of brahmacharya ashram. Then those who are grihasthas, they have to follow the duties of the grihastha ashram. And similarly, vanaprastha ashram, sannyasa ashram. That is as far as the ashrams is concerned. I know you're referring to the varnas. So as far as the varnas are concerned, now Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Srila Prabhupada in so many lectures he says, because nobody performs samskaras, therefore the Shastra says Janma Jayate Shudra. And because nobody performs samskaras, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. So everyone is what? Shudra. Therefore, in the present age, what is the situation? If a person doesn't get a job, he's useless. Correct? People do big, they study so much, big degrees, but at the end of that, what? Job. Where is the job? If they don't get job, pathetic situation. Then they have to drive auto rickshaw. Why? It's a Shudra mentality. So therefore, practically everyone is a Shudra. But even within that, definitely there is some different propensities we do see. Right? If you take any group of people, you'll find there are different propensities. So some people are more intellectual, some have administrative qualities, some have business qualities, some have Shudra qualities. You do find that classification. Any group of people you take, you find this. And therefore you find somebody is studying in IIT and somebody is Chaprasi or whatever. Why? There is a difference. So even though all have Shudra mentality, even with the Shudra mentality, there is some difference. So because that's what Prabhupada says, you cannot eliminate this classification. It is Krishna's classification. You cannot eliminate it. So you have to find some people who are intellectuals. You have to find some people with administrative qualities. You have to find these differences. And so therefore, even though there are the differences, the qualities are missing. The qualities of Brahmanas, qualities of Kshatriyas. That's what Prabhupada says. Who's Kshatriya? The Minister of Defense is sitting in his air-conditioned chamber and he's giving orders to the poor soldiers to fight. But you don't find that in the Vedic times. In Vedic times, what do you find? Here, who's in the front? The leader is in the front. Arjuna is in the front. Duryodhana is in the front. They're not sitting somewhere and giving orders. So where is that Kshatriya now? There's no Kshatriya. Prabhupada is talking about the kings of Jaipur fighting with tigers, bare hands. Who's that person now? If somebody sees a tiger from 100 meters only, he'll run. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada very often stressed and talking about the conversation between Ramananda Rai and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sthane Sthita Shrudigatam Tanuvan Manobi. This was the verse that Srila Prabhupada very often quoted, and he said, in very practical terms, he would say, So therefore, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're engineer, be engineer. Doctor, you be doctor. Lawyer, be lawyer. No problem. But at the same time, practice Krishna consciousness. This is the practical solution. And according to one's, and as far as temple situations are concerned, then temple authorities, according to different propensities, then they engage different devotees in different services. And very often we see that it is not like a one-time settlement. We very often see temple authorities, okay, they give one service to a particular devotee, then after some time he finds that, oh, this is not very suitable for him, then they change it. You find all this, right? Why? Because things are not fixed like in previous times. So in previous times, son of a Brahmana would definitely have Brahmanical qualities. Why? Because that was how right from birth all the sanskaras are performed, the training is like that. So in general, son of a Brahmana would have Brahmanical qualities. Son of a Kshatriya would have Kshatriya qualities. So then everything was very systematic. But now what? As Prabhupada says, it's all topsy-turvy. Ulta's ulta. So nobody knows who's what. So, okay, whatever is your propensity, do some service and practice Krishna consciousness. That's the practice. Okay? Okay. So now, okay, read this, another lecture.
The spirit of Kshatriya. Yashomant Sena, either he conquers the battle or he lays down his body, they are dead. So the man who has come, he must be somebody pretender. So she refused to open the door. This is the spirit of Kshatriya.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada tells about the story of this king Yashomanta Sen. So this king, he went to fight, and then he thought that he would not win. So he left the battlefield midway. He left the battlefield and returned to the palace. So when he came to the palace, he told the palace guards that go and tell the queen Yashomanta Sen has come. So this was her response. This was the queen's response to the guard. So the queen said, "Are my husband Yashomanta Sen? Either he will win the war or he will die on the battlefield. How has he come midway from the battle? He cannot be my husband. He must be some pretender, some imposter. So don't open the palace doors." So that is how even the queen had such a Kshatriya spirit. So she was not thinking that, oh, my husband should come back alive. No, they were also in the same spirit. Doesn't matter if he dies on the battlefield, but he should not return midway, showing the back to the enemy. And so you see, even in the battle between the Devas and the Asuras, when Vritrasur was fighting, so seeing the prowess of Vritrasur, all the Devatas, they started running from the battle. So then Vritrasur starts saying, "Arey, what Kshatriyas are you? You're running away from the battlefield? Shame on you." So that was the Kshatriya spirit. Okay. So Krishna defeats Arjuna's argument of enjoyment by this karma kand. And now the next verse, even though sort of put in this section, is indicating what is the next section. Okay, now here Krishna turns everything around and he says, Sukha duke same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yujjasva naivam papam avapsyasi. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. Now you see, till now Krishna was saying, okay, you will get this benefit, this loss. He was talking about all that. Now what he says? Now he says, don't bother about all this. Don't bother about sukha, dukkha. Don't think about profit, loss, victory, defeat. Don't think about all this. Just fight because you have to fight, because it is your duty to fight. So you see how Krishna is just turning the whole thing around. Okay, read the purport.
Purport. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or gain, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Devarshi
Bhutaptaninam
Bhutaptanunam
Pitrunam
Pitrunam
na
Na
kinkaro
Kinkaro
nayam
Nayam
Vrisharajan
Vrisharajan
Sarvatmanaya
Sarvatmanaya
Sharanam
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 Sharanyam
Tato
Tato Mukundam
Mukundam
Parivityakar.
Parivityakartam.
Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses.
Okay, so here basically Krishna is telling him, don't bother about the result. Don't bother about the results. Perform your duty because it is your duty. That's all. Be on the duty platform, duty bound. Don't bother about the results. And this is what leads us to the next section. Before that, quote from Prabhupada.
This is duty.
Next.
This is the duty. One has to execute duty without any consideration of loss and gain. That is duty, observing duty. Just see, you are Kshatriya. There is necessary of this fighting. So you should not consider whether you are gaining or losing. It is your duty to fight. If you execute your duty nicely, there is no question of sin.
Okay, so here another point he's saying that if you perform your duty nicely, then there is no question of sin. Naivam papam avapsisi. So that brings us to the next section. Okay, so this is how Krishna basically refutes Arjuna's arguments. So in the previous section from 11 to 30, he has defeated the argument of compassion by Gyan. And the next two reasons, enjoyment and sinful reactions, is defeated in this section from 31 to 38. Now the next section from 39 to 53 is Buddhi Yoga. Right, so he's leading to the next section. The 30th verse is sort of in between. He's leading to the next section. Okay, we'll come to that. 39. Esha te bihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shrino buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So Krishna is saying, Esha te bihita sankhye. Till now, I have described to you Sankhya philosophy. So what is Sankhya philosophy that Krishna has described? Analysis. No. It's not referring to this profit loss. It is referring to matter and spirit. Sankhya refers to the analytical study of matter and spirit that he has covered in Which section? 11 to 30. So in 11 to 30, Krishna has discussed about matter and spirits. So that is what is Sankhya. So therefore, Krishna says that I have described to you Sankhya. Now I'm going to describe to you Buddhi Yoga. Buddhir yoge tva imam shrinu. Now here, listen. I'm going to describe to you about Buddhi Yoga. And what is the result of practicing Buddhi Yoga? Buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. By practicing this Buddhi Yoga, you can become free from karma bandham. You can be free from the bondage of reaction. So Srila Prabhupada, as he begins his purport by saying, according to Nirukti of the Vedic dictionary, Sankhya means that which describes things in details, and Sankhya refers to that philosophy which describes the real nature of the soul. And yoga involves controlling the senses. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting because he thought that by not killing his relatives and by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom after conquering his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the basic principles were for sense gratification. Okay, so he's describing all this. And further down, Prabhupada is writing, an analytical study of the soul and the body has been very graphically explained by Lord Krishna. And this descriptive knowledge of the soul and the body from different angles of vision has been described here as Sankhya in terms of the Nirukti dictionary. This Sankhya has nothing to do with the Sankhya philosophy of the atheist Kapila. Okay, then he's speaking something about that. He's speaking about the real Kapila, the son of Kardama and Devhuti. And there was also one imposter Kapila who basically spoke about atheistic Sankhya. Next paragraph. Arjuna has already accepted Krishna as a spiritual master by surrendering himself unto him. Shishyasthayam shadimam tvam prapannam. Consequently, Krishna will now tell him about the working process in Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga. In other words, the practice of devotional service only for the sense gratification of the Lord. This Buddhi Yoga is clearly explained in chapter 10, verse 10, as being direct communion with the Lord who's sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart. So, now in this section, the word Buddhi Yoga is being used. And there is that famous verse in the 10th chapter, 10th verse. What is that? Tesham satayuktanam bhajadam pritipurukam dadami buddhi yogam tam ye namam upayanti te. So there also the word Buddhi Yoga comes. So the word Buddhi Yoga has these two meanings, as you see Prabhupada is mentioning here. Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga. That is one meaning. One meaning of Buddhi Yoga is Karma Yoga. And then he's also referring to chapter 10. But in chapter 10, the meaning of the word Buddhi Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. Is this point clear? The word Buddhi Yoga has both the meanings, Karma Yoga as well as Bhakti Yoga. Now, which meaning applies has to be seen in terms of the context in which the word has been used. But the word Buddhi Yoga is a little stretchable term, and it goes all the way from Karma Yoga to Buddhi Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. So it means both. Okay, it means Karma Yoga as well as Bhakti Yoga. And that's what he says. One who is therefore situated in devotional or transcendental loving service to the Lord, or in other words, in Krishna consciousness, attains to the stage of Buddhi Yoga by the special grace of the Lord. The Lord says, therefore, that only to those who always engage in devotional service out of transcendental love does he award the pure knowledge of devotion in love. In that way, the devotee can reach him easily in the ever blissful kingdom of God. That's Bhakti Yoga. That's what Prabhupada is speaking about. He's talking about Bhakti Yoga, when one is engaged in devotional service out of transcendental love. So that's also called as Buddhi Yoga, because then Krishna gives the intelligence by which one can return to him. Thus, the Buddhi Yoga mentioned in this verse is the devotional service of the Lord, and the word Sankhya mentioned herein has nothing to do with the atheistic Sankhya Yoga enunciated by the impostor Kapila. One should not therefore misunderstand that the Sankhya Yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the atheistic. Where was that? One should not therefore misunderstand that the Sankhya Yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the atheistic Sankhya. Nor did that philosophy have any influence during that time, nor would Lord Krishna care to mention such godless philosophical speculations. Real Sankhya philosophy is described by Lord Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But even that Sankhya has nothing to do with the current topics. Because that Sankhya spoken by Lord Kapila is entirely devotional. But here, the Sankhya that is being referred to here is basically the analytical study of matter and spirits, or the soul and the body. Here, Sankhya means analytical description of body and soul. Lord Krishna made an analytical description of the soul just to bring Arjuna to the point of Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Lord Krishna's Sankhya and Lord Kapila's Sankhya, as described in the Bhagavatam, are one and the same. Why? Because the goal is the same. The goal is to bring one to the point of devotional service. They are all Bhakti Yoga. Lord Krishna said, therefore, that only the less intelligent class of men make a distinction between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. That comes in the next chapter, Sankhya Yoga Pritak Bala Pravritina Pandita. Okay. Now we'll go to the 40th verse, which is a well-known verse. Neha vikramanaśvasti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport.
Activities in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of the Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental qualities of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can the small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at loss, even if his work in the Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent result. So that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in the material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamila performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam. Taktva swadharmam charnam bhujam harer bhajan apakko ata patet tato yadi yatra kwa vidharma abhut amusya kim ko vartha apo apto bhajatam dharmata. If someone gives up his occupational duties and work in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on the account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one perform his material activities perfectly? Or as a Christian says, what profit a man if he gains the whole world, it suffers the loss of his eternal soul. Material activities and their results ends with the body, but the work in Krishna consciousness carries the person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmana or in the rich aristocratic family. That will give one a further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness.
Okay. So now, Krishna is introducing the topic of Buddhi Yoga, which has two meanings. What are they? Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So these two verses now, verse number 40 and 41, these two verses are speaking about Bhakti Yoga. So now it becomes very important to understand what are the differences between these terms. So we are going to describe what is technically called as the yoga ladder. And we are not going to get into details right now, but a basic preliminary understanding of the yoga ladder. And we can see that Krishna in his descriptions here is going very systematically along this yoga ladder. So we can see that on the lowest platform, which is not actually a part of the yoga ladder, but a precursor to yoga ladder, there is Karmakand. Okay. So on the platform of Karmakand, the person is basically interested in what? Profit loss. So on the platform of Karmakand, the person is basically thinking about sense gratification. Because that's the nature of all conditioned souls. So now as you'll see in the further verses also that are going to come. So you see that Karmakand is part of Vedas. Correct? It's a part of the Vedas. And who has given Vedas? Yeah, the Vedas are basically the breathing of the Supreme Lord. They're coming from the Supreme Lord himself. So that means ultimately, Krishna has given Karmakand. And the goal of Karmakand is more sense gratification. So that means Krishna wants the conditioned souls to enjoy sense gratification, correct? So the basic question is, then why has Krishna given Karmakand in the Vedas? Any thoughts?
Gradual progress.
Okay, gradual progress, but so what do you mean?
Even Vedic culture is so broad that it gives opportunity to all. Whether if somebody wants to worship Nirankar, Nirakar, they are facilitated. If even there is a demon there.
Okay, that's fine. So sticking to the point of Karmakand, so how that gradual process takes place? Or in the first place, somebody may say, okay, the Lord could have given things directly, isn't it? Why gradual process? He could have directly, Bhakti is topmost, Bhakti is supreme, everyone take Bhakti.
Krishna is not autocrat.
That's okay. But then when something good has to be given, why not give what is good?
Even if forcefully, then if somebody is not accepting, because there would be some who will not accept. Like we are here in this world, we are like, we rebuked. So we are still there. So there would be some person who will not accept.
Okay, fine. Good point.
Without following some religious process, human life is just an animal life.
Okay.
So bringing the people a level higher than the animalistic life, he has included all of them in the karma kand way, in the sense of they would be undergoing sense gratification, but in a way which is ordained by the Lord, which is sanctioned by the Lord. Hence has included all of these animalistic people to elevate themselves and given this process of karma kand in Vedas.
Okay, fine. That's correct. You want to say something?
Whatever sense gratification also mentioned in the Vedas, it gradually regulate the person.
Yes.
So it's
yes, so it's a regulated sense gratification. That's correct. So therefore, the important point is that everyone will not be able to directly give up all types of sense gratification because they're influenced by different modes. So somebody who's influenced by the lower modes will not be able to give up sense gratification directly. The analogy is given that just like, suppose the mother wants to give bitter medicine to the child, how does she give? In some sweet. So she puts the medicine in the sweet and gives the sweet to the child. So what the child thinks? This is sweet. But then along with the sweet, he gets the medicine. So similarly, the Vedas are also like mother. So they know what the conditioned souls want. So therefore, the Vedas are saying, oh, you want sense gratification? Why insignificant, little sense gratification of this world? Take more sense gratification. Go to Swarga, 1,000 times more sense gratification, 1,000 times more enjoyment. Now, much more beautiful apsaras and much more beautiful bodies. So why little sense gratification here? Take more sense gratification. So that is how the Karmakanda section is inducing the conditioned souls to follow the Vedas. So they're getting a chance to follow the Vedas. They bring them under the Vedic fold or the Vedic umbrella. So then the next question arises, so what is the medicine that they get along with following Karmakand? Yes, one point is the regulation, that's correct.
Online.
Yes, that's right. So the medicine that is there in all Karmakanda sacrifices, there is the chanting of the names of Vishnu. That is the medicine. So in all Karmakanda sacrifices, there has to be chanting of the names of Vishnu, because Vishnu is the ultimate Yajnapati. He is the ultimate Bhokta. He is the ultimate enjoyer of all the sacrifices. So that has to be there. So that chanting of the names of Vishnu is like medicine that is there along with everything else. And so even though the person may be performing some sacrifices to the devatas, doing some punya, whatever, but then he also gets the benefit of chanting the names of Vishnu. He also gets the benefit of following the Vedas. And also there is benefit of renunciation, purification by renunciation. Because to perform any sacrifice, what is required? Yes, so he has to spend his hard-earned money for performing the sacrifice. Of course, these days nobody performs sacrifice like in the previous times, Ashwamedh sacrifice and all that. That nobody can even dream of. But even some sacrifice means there's some expenditure the person has to spend. So that's how he's getting purified by that renunciation. So by these three ways, what are the three ways? Following Vedas, chanting of the names of Vishnu. Yes. By these three ways, purification by renunciation, by these three ways, the person gets purified by performing karma kands. And at the same time, ideally, of course, these days these things don't happen, but ideally, the karmakanda brahmanas are also supposed to give some instructions to the yajman, to the host who's performing the sacrifice, give some knowledge about the nature of the material world, the temporary nature of the material world, the nature of sense gratification, all that. Some knowledge is supposed to give. Nowadays, the karmakanda brahmanas themselves don't know anything. What knowledge? The only thing they know is just chant something and get some money. That's all. Nothing more than that. But ideally, that is what is supposed to happen. So in any case, so that is how the karmakand, by performance of karmakand, one gradually gets purified. That is at the lowest platform. So now, so the karmakand also is leading to material benefits, basically, which are all temporary. So then, as the person continues his karmakand, he gets knowledge from the brahmanas and all that. So then gradually the person, he begins to realize that whatever I'm doing in this karmakand, ultimately is temporary. Ultimately, it's simply going to be the cause of misery. And I'll still remain in the material world, which is miserable. So therefore, then the person thinks, no. This is all useless. Therefore, what is better is I should get out of this material world. Then he begins to think of moksha. Then he begins to think of liberation, getting out of the material worlds. That's when he enters the field of yoga. Yoga means, yes, connection with Supreme. So he understands that only by a connection with the Supreme Absolute Truth, I can get mukti, I can get liberation. And that's how he begins yoga. And the first step of yoga is karma yoga. So now what is karma yoga? So a general definition of karma yoga is person is attached to the work but detached from the fruits. Attached to the work, detached from the fruits. This is a general understanding of karma yoga. So because till now he's been doing karma kand, he has a lot of attachments still. So therefore, he understands that these material attachments are not good, but still he can't give them up all of a sudden, isn't it? So therefore, it said that there are two types of karma yoga. Sakam and Nishkam. Sakam karma yoga, Nishkam karma yoga. In both cases, the person is attached to work. And here, of course, we are talking about a Vedic situation, and when we talk of work, it essentially refers to Varnashram duties. Okay? Essentially, we are referring to Varnashram duties. So he's attached to the work, but when he's partially detached from the fruits, it becomes Sakam Karma Yoga. When he's completely detached from the fruits, it becomes Nishkam Karma Yoga. Partially detached from the fruits, it's called Sakam Karma Yoga. Totally detached from the fruits, it's called Nishkam Karma Yoga. So sometimes this example is given just to get some understanding. So just like, so now during book distribution marathon, so some devotees, they go with book bags, right, to distribute books. So if there's a tailor, so the tailor comes to the Sankirtan in charge and says that, say, I'm a tailor, so I can stitch some bags and give to the devotees for distributing books. So the in charge is very happy. Okay, good. So what's your price for the bags? So if the man says that normally I charge 100 rupees per bag, but because your devotees are doing such nice benevolent work for the people, so therefore I will charge only 50 rupees per bag. So that is what? That is Sakam. That is Sakam Karma. And if the same man says that, okay, I'll give free of cost, then that will be Nishkam. But if say the temple president would say, no, we have enough bags. We don't require your bags. You can do some other service. Then the man will say, no, I cannot do any other service. Only this service. So that means what? He is still attached to his work. He is attached to his work. So this is basic understanding of what is Sakam Karma Yoga and Nishkam Karma Yoga. Now, another important point to note is that on this platform, he has some understanding of spirituality. He's just beginning to understand spirituality. He doesn't have a clear understanding of who is Supreme Lord, who is Bhagavan, all that he doesn't have a clear understanding. His main goal is what? His main goal is what? Yes, liberation. His main goal is liberation from the material world. And for that, he knows that he has to connect himself to the Supreme. So therefore, he sacrifices the fruits of his activities for some spiritual cause. For some spiritual cause. Okay. So that could be some Brahmanas, it could be Vaishnavas, it could be impersonalists, anyone. Some sort of spiritualists. He sacrifices the fruits of his work. So he doesn't have a clear conception of who is the Supreme. So this is the stage of Karma Yoga. Okay? So now, as he continues to perform his detached work, he is performing his duties according to Varnashram, he is attached to them. But at the same time, he's sacrificing what? What is sacrificing? The fruits of his work, he's sacrificing. Because of this detached work, the person gets purified. See, the entire purpose of human life is what? Purification. Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam shuddhyet yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. So, the person who's understood that the material world is miserable and actually there's no sukh here, there's no happiness here. So he's focusing on what? On what? Brahma sukh. He's focusing on Brahma sukh. That is transcendental happiness. That is his focus. So therefore he wants to give up this material happiness. No, there's no happiness at all. So he's focusing on Brahma sukh. And for that Brahma sukh, he knows that what is required? Purification. And for that purification, what is required? What is required? Yes, some tapasya is required. Therefore, he is performing this tapasya of detaching himself from the fruits of his activities. So, because he is detaching himself from the fruits of his activities, which are very dear to him, correct? Every man is working for what? Fruits, phal. Phal kya milega? Everyone is working for that. If somebody is told to work in a company, first question the person asks is what? What's the package? And if the boss says, don't bother, jo milega, milega. Anyone will be interested? So everyone is interested in the fruits. Now that which is so dear to this person, he is sacrificing. That which is dear to the body, he is sacrificing, correct? So because he is sacrificing that which is dear to the body, he gradually gets purified of the bodily concept of life. And he gets more and more gyan, he gets more and more knowledge, more and more realization that I am not the body, I am spirit soul. This knowledge, gyan, that I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul, this is the basic spiritual knowledge, Atma Tattva. This realization is a concomitant factor of detached work. Concomitant factor means it goes parallelly along with detached work because he's detaching himself from the body. So therefore, the bodily conception reduces. This principle very much applies for us also. The more we detach ourselves from the fruits, we'll become detached from the body. And the more we are attached to the fruits, ये सेवा करूंगा क्या मिलेगा, वो सेवा करूंगा क्या मिलेगा, ये सेवा करूंगा वो डीटी किचन में महाप्रसाद मिलेगा. So if you're all the time focusing on this, mujhe kya milega, as in English it said, what's in it for me? Everyone is thinking about that. What's in it for me? Mujhe kya milega? So if one is all the time thinking about this, mujhe kya milega? So then one will have to be satisfied with the fruits, and the result of that is one will be still in the bodily concept of life. Therefore, the more one detaches oneself from the fruits, the more one rises above the bodily concepts. So Baldev Vidyabhushan gives an example of a lotus stem. So sometimes they make sabji of lotus stem, right? You have seen? So in that lotus stem, so when you eat sabji, it's a cross section, correct? What do you find? देखा है? You find some holes in the cross section. So that means if it is the whole stem, lotus stem, what these will be? Yes, like tubes, like tubes. So I'm sure all of you have studied botany at some point of time, correct? And you know what those tubes are called? Say that? Yes, that's correct. They're called as xylem and phloem. So yes, that's right. So these are there for carrying the water and the nutrients from the roots to the upper parts of the tree. So now, can you find a lotus stem without this? Can you find a lotus stem without this? No. These are inbuilt. These are inbuilt within the stem. You cannot separate them, correct? These are inbuilt. होना ही चाहिए ना, इसके बिना नहीं हो सकता है. Similarly, Gyan is inbuilt within detached work. Remember this principle. Gyan is inbuilt within detached work. Which Gyan we are talking about? Which Gyan? I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul. This is Sattvagun Gyan, basically. This is Sattvagun Gyan, Sattvic Gyan. This Gyan is inbuilt within detached work. And therefore, that's how, as the person gets purified by the performance of Karma Yoga, he comes to the platform of Jnana Yoga. So on the platform of Jnana Yoga, then as he progresses, the main sadhana of the Jnanis is to further reduce the bodily conception of life by performance of severe austerities. So the Jnanis, they perform very severe austerities. Prabhupada tells in his lectures of how in the summers they surround themselves with 5 fires, 4 on 4 sides, 1 on top. Sun. 5 fires, voluntarily they surround themselves. And then in winters, ice cold water. This we'll study again in the 12th chapter, more details. Ice cold water. You know, in the Himalayas, there are some yogis who break ice and take water with that and bathe. अभी ऐसा कुछ नहीं करना पड़ता है यहाँ पे. हाँ. So this is Jnana Yoga. Why? Why they perform all these austerities? To get free from the bodily concept of life. And then at the same time, they're also trying to understand the absolute truth by the process of mental speculation. These are the two main sadhanas of the Jnanis. Trying to understand the absolute truth by the process of mental speculation. It's called the process of negation, neti neti. And Srila Prabhupada says that by this process of neti neti, at the most they'll come to an understanding of the impersonal conception of the absolute. So now, when the yogi comes to understand, so by the process of Jnana Yoga, at the most they will understand impersonal Brahman. So when the yogi comes to understand that there is a higher realization than that, and that is Paramatma realization, then he performs Ashtanga Yoga for Paramatma realization. And at any point of time, if the yogi comes in contact with a devotee, he gets bhakti. To get bhakti, what is required? Bhakta. Bhakti can only be acquired from bhakta, only from devotee. So at any point of time, whether at the level of karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, at any point of time, if the yogi comes in contact with devotee, then he transcends the step-by-step process. This is like step-by-step process. Therefore, it's called ladder, CD. So if one comes in contact with devotee, then he moves from the staircase to elevator, lift, and then directly goes to the top. And the top is Bhakti Yoga. Now, what is the characteristic of Bhakti Yoga? Now, we have said that at the platform of Karma Yoga, he is attached to what? He is attached to what? Work. He is attached to the work, but he is detached from the fruits. And as the person progresses, the detachment goes on increasing. The Jnana Yogi becomes even more detached. The Ashtanga Yogi becomes even more detached. And at the level of Bhakti Yoga, the person is even detached from what? The work itself. On the platform of Bhakti Yoga, he is detached from the work as well as the fruits. That is Bhakti Yoga. So on the platform of Bhakti Yoga, he doesn't think, oh, I like this service, I will do only this service. Now, on the platform Bhakti Yoga, which service he does? Whatever Krishna wants. Whatever Krishna wants. He is not attached to the work also. Whatever Krishna wants, he is ready to do that work, and the fruits of the work are also for Krishna. That is Bhakti Yoga. So you understood the basic difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga? And at the platform Bhakti Yoga, he also has the full understanding of the absolute truth. That the absolute truth as Bhagavan is Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. That realization he gets on the platform of Bhakti. On the platform of Karma Yoga, he doesn't have that full understanding. But on the platform of Bhakti Yoga, he has that full understanding. All right? Okay, fine. So it's time for a break. We'll take a break and then continue. Afterwards. Break. Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. So therefore, now what do we find in these verses? We find that Krishna is gradually elevating Arjuna's consciousness. So he began with Karmakand, profit loss, and now what he is doing? He is elevating his consciousness. That is Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga. So that is how he is gradually elevating his consciousness. And this is what we will find. That's how the Bhagavad Gita progresses. Krishna goes very systematically along this yoga ladder. So systematically progresses from Karmakand to Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and finally Bhakti. So Krishna goes very systematically, as we will see in the further progress. And so therefore, Krishna is teaching us how to preach. So we should not keep people at the lower platforms. But we may begin with the lower platform. Come to Krishna consciousness, you'll get shanti, peace of mind, concentration, Mahaprasad. So that's okay initially. But then it's our duty that as they progress, we also need to what? Elevate their consciousness. gradually. Okay, fine. So we have not gone into the full details of this yoga ladder. There are more details that we usually cover in the 6th chapter. But we gave you some preliminary understanding because here also we find that Krishna is following this progression. Okay, now if somebody has doubts on this discussion.
Here, like earlier when you started this yoga ladder, you were saying about karma kand, then about karma yoga, and then jnana, and then and then Prabhuji, you have mentioned that how by giving this example of the lotus stem, that jnana yoga is jnana, at least that jnana element is imbued in along with the karma yoga, because he does it with the understanding that I have to get liberated. Although it is a vague understanding of how to do what to do, but the person who is in yoga, karma yoga, does have some understanding of that. But when we are describing about Jnana Yoga, we were describing that he does, the main sadhana is, one is austerity and second is speculation. So now, and that you said most of the time it results in impersonal Brahman. So Prabhuji, from therein to the level of Ashtanga Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, how that understanding evolves. Like Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga, even without an intervention of someone like a devotee.
Of course, at all points of time, some guru is required. That's understood. So, so even from the platform of Jnana Yoga to Ashtanga Yoga, so then he comes to know through some association. No, maybe some yogis, maybe someone. Some association has to be there. That's how they come to know, okay, there's a higher realization than this. And that's how they progress then from Jnana Yoga to Ashtanga Yoga. And that, as we already mentioned, at any point of time, the association of a devotee is required to enter into bhakti. Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. My first question is like there are in between stages, like what I understand, in between, like from Karma Kand to Karma Yoga, there is understanding of like fruits and work. By the time he understands that there are like two things, work and fruits, so he start detaching himself from fruits. So he comes to the level of Karma Yoga. Similarly, from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga, does he go through natural progression? Is it that he goes through like Sakam, then Niskam, and then Jnana Yoga?
Yes, usually transitional steps will always be there. You
Okay.
can't expect things to happen abruptly, isn't it?
Okay. And in the case of Bhakti, from wherever it is, there would be asterisk mark like always a devotee.
Yes.
There is no natural progression from Ashtanga Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. Is that true?
Well, later on we will see in the 18th chapter, Krishna does discuss that how, so when Krishna speaks about Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shoshati na Kankshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So there we will see that how the when the Jnani reaches the liberated platform, then he is a very good potential candidate for bhakti. And because on the liberated platform, even the Jnani is free from all material desires. That's why na shochati na kankshati. And so therefore, the bhakti very naturally evolves. But definitely, some element of bhakti is required. That means some association, maybe some chanting of the holy names. Some element of bhakti is required to awaken the bhakti. Nitya siddha Krishna prem sadhya kabunoi shravanadi shutta chitte karoye udo. So there has to be some aspect of bhakti involved for that bhakti to be aroused. That is always a principle.
And Prabhuji, I had this question for a long time. Like, we understand what is Brahman realization, and we understand how does a devotee feel at the platform of Bhagwan realization. how does it be at Jnani level or Ashtanga Yogi understand Paramatma realization? What are symptoms?
Shantaras. So the relationship of a yogi with the Supreme is Shantaras. So the yogi is very happy seeing the beautiful form of the Paramatma. And that's what he meditates.
He doesn't have desire to serve personally.
That eventually develops.
The difference would be only that he understands there is some supreme being who is existing besides me, out of me, outside
Yes,
of me.
yes.
Nothing.
But then usually, therefore, one who actually realizes the Paramatma obviously develops a desire to serve and very easily actually comes into bhakti when he actually realizes the Paramatma. If the yogi actually realizes the Paramatma, then naturally he'll become a devotee. But as Srila Prabhupada writes in so many places, the problem is that the yogis don't come up to that point of realization of Paramatma and they get stuck up somewhere between. Either they get stuck up with mystic siddhis mostly, and that's what Prabhupada writes, and that's what we see: bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami. So yogi is always associated with siddhi because that's where most yogis get stuck up with. And so if they don't come to the level of Paramatma realization, they either get stuck up with siddhis or they get stuck up with impersonal Brahman. If they don't come to Paramatma, then they're stuck up at lower levels. But if one actually comes to the Paramatma realization, then again, so actually, the Jnani also can come to bhakti by coming to the liberated platform. The yogi also can come to bhakti when he actually realizes Paramatma. And of course, the bhakta, by his practice of bhakti, reaches Prem Bhakti. So all three avenues are there for someone to ultimately come to the topmost platform. Okay.
Thank you, Bhaji.
Anything else? Okay, good. So, now before reading Prabhupada's quote, now coming to the 40th verse. So we'll once again go through the 40th verse. Neha bikrama nasho asti pratyavaya na vidyate. So he's saying that in this abhikrama means endeavor. In this endeavor, there is na nasha asti pratyavaya. So there is no nasha, there is no loss, and there is no diminution also. No loss, no diminution. And swalpam apyasya dharmasya traite mahato mayat. Now this verse, as Srila Prabhupada is writing, activity in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Even a small beginning of such activity. Which activity? Which activity? Devotional activity. Activity in Krishna consciousness. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. So, on the material platform, unless work is completed, it's not considered successful. Correct? So, of course, we can give so many different examples. So, just like somebody has begun construction of the building, and sometimes you do find, due to various reasons, the building remains incomplete only. And what if the person dies before the building is complete? People will say, "Arey, kya hai? Kuch to bana diya. Beech mein chhod diya." Suppose he's building this big apartment, with so many apartments. So suppose he doesn't complete it, then is he going to get any profit of giving those apartments, selling the apartments? Is he going to get anything? No, he doesn't get anything. Only his expenditure. Yes, it will be loss. So that is any material activity. So that applies even to Karma Yoga. So even on the platform of Karma Yoga, so if somebody, see in Karma Yoga, what? The person, he performs the activity and then he sacrifices the fruits, correct? He performs the activity and then he sacrifices the fruits. That is Karma Yoga. He's attached to his work. He has to complete the work. Let's take the same example. So suppose the person who is making the building is a Karma Yogi. So now he wants to give the fruits of his activity for some spiritual cause. For that what? He has to complete the building. Then only he's going to get profit, na? Then only when he gets the profit, he can give the profit for some spiritual cause. So if he doesn't complete the building only, then what he's going to give? You understand the point? So that is Karma Yoga. So for Karma Yoga also, work has to be complete. He has to get the fruits and then he can give the fruits. Correct? Now, in Bhakti, so suppose we take the same example. So a devotee is constructing a temple, building. Okay, you can say building also. He is constructing building for use of Krishna's devotees. Now suppose the devotee also same situation. He leaves the building incomplete. He is not able to complete due to some reason. But what happens when a devotee is constructing the building for the pleasure of Krishna? What is the difference?
Forget about the result. Krishna says, by the desire itself of building a temple, Krishna becomes pleased and he bestows mercy. Then whatever ender he had would have done, that got registered with him.
Yes. Because in Bhakti Yoga, right from the desire, right from the first brick, what is the devotee thinking? Yes, this is for Krishna. Therefore, right from day one, his bhakti has begun. His bhakti has begun. So even though the building is not complete, but still he gets the devotional credits. And so therefore, then Prabhupada says, what? The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. So that is how in devotional service in Bhakti Yoga, the Bhakti begins the moment there is even a small endeavor, Swalpam Pesada. And then that, as we hear many times, permanent bank account, and then that continues on in the next life. We find that there was Mr. P.L. Sethi. So during the Jew temple, Giraj Maharaj writes in his book, how of course he was, yes, when they were going to demolish, then he and his son were standing with rifles throughout the night, very boldly. And then he helped in making many of those apartments, early days, when those tenants, the buildings of the tenants were there. So on those itself, he constructed some rooms for the devotees. And then, of course, many other such constructions he did. And Srila Prabhupada blessed him. He said, because you're constructing these rooms for the devotees, Krishna will construct a palace for you in Golok Vrindavan. We never hear of him even being initiated. How many rounds he was standing, we don't know all those things. But because he was serving Srila Prabhupada and the devotees, his bhakti began. His devotional services began. Srila Prabhupada was pleased. Right. So that's bhakti, that's devotional service. And so therefore this verse is speaking about bhakti yoga. So Krishna said, now I'll speak about buddhi yoga, but in the first two verses, Krishna specifically speaks about bhakti yoga.
Guruji, we know that permanent bank account for devotees who do bhakti and all. Wherever place he left in this body, and then he starts from right there from the next body, next. Then as far as someone who is coming in this yoga lander, let's say someone is at any other point. Let's say he's at karma yoga, doing some particular. Taking the example of this building, so maybe in his entire life he has done such kind of 10 kind of buildings. On 9 buildings he has donated, 5 buildings he has donated. He didn't donate for some buildings the profit which he got from it. Some kind of calculation, any random calculation, any random permutation and combination. I'm asking the level of advancement what he reaches there, will it be carried ahead in this next life with the same kind of mentality, detachment, or jnana, whatever elements we include in that karma yoga? Will it be carried forward?
So therefore, now again the discussion comes again in the 6th chapter. So again, there also Arjuna asked the question, so what happens to a yogi in general who doesn't complete his yoga practices? So there Krishna says, there is no loss for any transcendentalist on any path of yoga. There is no loss. But there is a difference. So what is the difference? So on these other paths, there is no bhakti. Correct? There is no bhakti. So what is increasing as the person is progressing? What is increasing is what? Sattva. The purification leading to sattva, that is what is increasing. The sattva gun is increasing. He is detaching himself from sense gratification. Sense gratification means what? Rajas and tamas. So because he is detaching himself from sense gratification, Rajas and tamas is reducing, sattva is increasing. So therefore it is said that he is acquiring what? Sattva gun gyan. Bhagavad Gita is what type of gyan? Nirgun gyan. This is nirgun. This is beyond the modes about Krishna. But what this person is acquiring is what? Sattva gun gyan. So basically what is increasing is sattva. And therefore, in the next life, he is born with more sattva. That's all. But then, as again we will study in the 14th chapter, with sattva, that is material sattva, there is always a possibility of being contaminated by rajas and tamas at any moment. Therefore, there is no guarantee that there is going to be a progression. So sattva may increase. Next life is born with more sattva. How many people are born with sattva, but due to association, rajas and tamas takes over? Then they're nowhere. Then karma yoga, everything is forgotten. Then they are pure sense gratified. Therefore, Baunam Janmanam Ant for these people. But in bhakti, when we talk of bhakti, what one gets in bhakti? What is the element one gets in bhakti? Definitely we can say sattva increases. But what is the main thing that increases? Say that?
Faith in relation to Lord.
Yes. Faith in the Lord, attraction to the Lord. That is the main component of bhakti. And that attraction to the Lord is what continues in the next life. And that attraction to the Lord, being on the transcendental platform, is much more powerful than just sattva guna. Sattva can easily be taken over by rajas and tamas, but attraction to the Lord is non-different from the Lord, and so therefore that has a continuous progression. Is it clear?
Regarding that mystic yoga, it comes in between Jnana Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga.
The mystic siddhis come when one practices the various steps of Ashtanga Yoga. And so in the various steps of Ashtanga Yoga, Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar. So somewhere between Pranayam, Pratyahar, somewhere there, the person starts developing siddhis.
That means those who have such mystic power, they have already means that Ashtanga Yoga, he has already realized some Brahman, or he don't have that.
Okay, so now when we come to the 6th chapter, this point will become clear. So it's not that one has to go this way only. See, we show this in this way because this is one pattern. But it is not necessary that this realization has to be complete before one goes here. What is a fundamental step for everyone is this. The karma yoga is a fundamental step for everyone. Because without karma yoga, that means without getting purified by performance of prescribed duties and becoming detached from the fruits, there is no progression at all. This is like fundamental step. So just like, so whichever branch of education one wants to follow, in most cases, one has to complete at least 10th standard or 12th standard, correct? Correct? From 5th standard, can one become engineer? Possible? Modern day, I don't know. No. So one wants to become engineer, doctor, 12th standard is minimum, correct? Then you choose. Similarly, it's like that. Karma yoga is mandatory. Now from karma yoga, one can go to jnana yoga and then develop impersonal realization. Or from karma yoga, one can begin the steps of Ashtanga yoga. Along with karma yoga, one can begin the steps of Ashtanga yoga. So the initial steps of Ashtanga yoga can be practiced along with karma yoga. And then the same thing, he's performing his karma yoga. That means what? He's basically performing his duties. He's sacrificing the fruits of his activities. At the same time, he performs the initial steps of yam, niyam, asana, all that. That is one can do at home also. No? One doesn't have to go anywhere else. Sitting at home only, one can practice yam, niyam, asana. All that one can do. So karma yoga and the initial steps of Ashtanga yoga go parallelly, and then he gradually progresses, and then as he progresses, as he gets purified, then first of all he may realize the impersonal Brahman, and then gradually he has to give up his household activities, everything, go to the forest, and then in the forest, then realization of the Paramatma, all that takes place. So that's how it is. So the karma yoga is what is mandatory. And then, as Srila Prabhupada explains, now the jnana yogi, if he gets stuck up over here, with his impersonal realization, then yes, then he's called a jnani, then he's stuck up over there. But actually, on the ladder, suppose the 100-storied building, so the person is going step by step by step. He's supposed to progress, no? If he's stuck up somewhere, then okay, then that much only. That's what he gets. So ideally, one has to go through all this and come to the top. Then he's actually successful. But if he's stuck up somewhere, then he's not successful actually. Correct? So from Karma Yoga, one can practice the initial steps of Ashtanga Yoga also. But then ultimately, from there, when he's fully detached from his material desires and all that, then he actually begins severe austerity. Then the same thing. Then he has to perform severe austerities, go to the forest and do all that. And then he may initially realize the Brahman and then the Paramatma, and all that happens. Right? Again, 6th chapter will become more clear.
Guruji, this karma yoga is required, like as you mentioned, it is fundamental. So, for as you mentioned, this is karma yoga is fundamental. It is required. So, does it require for bhakti yoga also?
Bhakti yoga is special. Bhakti yoga is not dependent on anything else. Bhakti yoga is totally independent. And so therefore, for beginning bhakti yoga, nothing else is required. For beginning bhakti yoga, the only thing that is required is
mercy of
what?
Mercy of devotee.
Yes, the association of a devotee. That is the only thing that is required to begin bhakti yoga. Okay, so there are more points to discuss, but I think so this preliminary understanding is good enough for now. Otherwise, then we'll go on with this discussion only. Okay, fine.
One question. So, Prabhuji, why karma yoga is necessary? Just because he has to get knowledge, that detachment?
See, how will purification take place?
So for purification, it is required.
That is what we have been saying. What is the basic point of doing all this? What is the point? What is the purpose?
Oh. But Prabhuji, let's say someone who is at karma kanda, I'm not speaking about karma yoga, karma kanda process. Only just by the dint of knowledge can he elevate himself? Can he start practicing jnana yoga without entering karma yoga?
How?
By the dint of knowledge of that, what impersonal Brahma, whatever.
No. See, realization does not take place without purification. It is not something just like, even if you take a material example, again, can you go from 5th standard directly to engineering college? Can you go? Somebody can say, I'll purchase. Somebody may be very intelligent, and so sometimes we do find some children may be very intelligent. They'll say, oh, a 5th standard student may say, you give me engineering books, I'll read them, I'll study. But is it possible?
Puji, but if it doesn't necessary that, let's say in this lifetime I have done that same, no? Material sattva can be, if he has born with a material sattva, done some kind of karma yoga last in previous life, got some kind of material sattva carried over in this life, and then with getting in touch with that knowledge of impersonal Brahman or that kind of knowledge, can
so that's what I'm saying. It's not theoretical knowledge. This is a matter of realization. It's not theoretical knowledge. We're not talking about theoretical knowledge. We're talking about realization. So, and that's what we were talking about yesterday also. I may know theoretically I'm spirit soul, I'm not body. Does it mean that I have realized the spirit soul? There's a total difference, correct?
Yes.
So how much realization of the spirit soul one has, one will know when the situation comes.
Then what relation a person has at karma yoga?
The only realization at the stage of karma yoga is that he is trying to get purified. He knows that there is a supreme controller, And he's trying to establish his relationship with that supreme controller. And he wants to get out of the material world. The main focus is how to get out of the material world. Mukti. That is the main focus.
But Prabhuji, that when oh, all right.
Bolo.
Prabhuji, what I was actually Prabhuji, when you said that he tries to get out of the material world, or he wants to establish a control, that is like his desire or realization or his goal, what it is exactly. That's
Okay. See, this is, say, this is 10 standard. So at 10 standard also you get a certificate, correct? So, but then he wants to become an engineer, so then he has to enter the engineering college. Does it end with entering the engineering college? No. Then what?
study and pass.
After he passes the engineering college, is that sufficient?
For what?
For actually becoming a qualified engineer.
Practice.
Practice. Then after practice, then one qualifies, right? Then he is a qualified engineer with practice. Then people value that. People value what? The experience. The same thing applies even in medical studies. The same thing.
Yes.
Correct. So the same thing applies here also. So the Karma Yoga is the beginning. He's beginning his process of purification. And in fact, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga go together. As the Karma Yoga progresses, his Jnana increases. Correct? Therefore, many times you will find it is said Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Only 3 yogas are told sometimes. Karma Yoga is not told only. Because Jnana Yoga cannot exist without Karma Yoga. So as Karma Yoga increases, as he's performing his prescribed duties, he's getting detached from the fruits. What is increasing? Jnana is increasing. Correct? So the Jnana goes on increasing, and then Jnana increases means what? Which Jnana increases?
Sattva-guni Jnana.
What is that?
Body and soul get different.
So that means he is getting more and more detached from body. So as he's getting more and more detached from the bodily conception, no more material desires. So the entire 5th chapter is that. 4th chapter also, 5th chapter also is talking about the symptoms of the Jnana Yogi. So then at a certain point, which is the liberated platform, at that point, then material desires are 0. Then when the material desires are 0, liberated platform, then he can actually, give up the performance of prescribed duties, because prescribed duties are required for purification. Liberated platform means what? He's fully purified. So at that point, then he can give up the performance of prescribed duties. That's technically called as karma sannyas. Then he renounces everything. He goes to the forest. He goes to the Himalayas. Then he's meditating on the impersonal Brahman, and then he's getting more purified. So this is a progression. This is a progression. So that liberation, which is the goal, takes place here. Understand? This is a process to achieve this. Here he started with the goal of what? Liberation. But the liberation becomes complete here. All right. I think so. For now, it is okay. Things will become clear as we proceed. I've already spoken much ahead.
6th chapter.
I've almost summarized all the first 6 chapters in this.
Yes.
Therefore, when I begin the 7th chapter, when I don't teach first 6 chapters and I begin the 7th chapter, then the first thing is I go through this. Because by going through this, the first 6 chapters are covered.
Yes.
Bolo.
In this verse, there is one word uses. One can it can protect one from the most dangerous types of fear.
What is the most dangerous type of fear?
Is it like falling into the
Yes, falling into animal life. That is, there is, I think so. That's what we are going to read from Prabhupada's quote. But Prabhupada makes that point very clear in his lectures. So the greatest dangers, that is Traite Mahato Bayat, is falling down into the low species. And therefore Prabhupada makes the point very clear that anyone who begins the practice of bhakti, it's only applicable to bhakti. Anyone who begins bhakti is at least guaranteed what? Human form of life. That Prabhupada says very clearly in his lectures.
But again, Praji, that's
again,
like
there are always exceptions.
yeah, Bharat Maharaj like
Those are exceptions. But then that also was not ordinary deer. Very special deer.
devotee deer. Praji, and in the case of karma kanda and karma yoga, so from the point when yoga starts, that time it becomes like avinashi, right? Eternal. That
Yes, yoga means connection with the Supreme. Before that, it is only sense gratification. Before that is only sense gratification. Only when yoga begins, then there is connection to Supreme, attainment of Supreme, liberation, all that begins.
basically from that point, that thing becomes permanent into his permanent.
So that we have already discussed. So what is, as far as the other yoga systems are concerned, what is permanent? Sattva. Only sattva is what continues on. But then we also discussed that sattva can always be covered by rajas and tamas. So therefore, that's the reason why Bhaunam Janmanam Bhante. It takes a very slow, very long time. सबको समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं? कुछ तो समझ में आ रहा है ना? ठीक है, चलेगा. भक्ति समझ में आ गया, बहुत हो गया. Okay, read Prabhupada's quote.
Buddhi yoga, karma yoga. Tyakta swara dharmam charan bhajam. All right. You have joined Krishna consciousness movement. That's all right. Execute it nicely. Make progress, but not progress. Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam hare bhajan apakvotha. If he could not execute properly, he could not chant 16 rounds, he could not observe the rules and regulations, or for sometimes he could not execute, and then again he becomes slackened. Just like sometimes we see some of our student falls down. So Narad Muni says, Bhajan apakvo tha. His execution of devotional service could not be completed. Some or other, it was checked, it was obstructed, and he falls down again in the clutches of Maya. Falls down. There is possibility. Maya is very strong. Maya is very strong. At any moment, we can fall down. Therefore, we have to keep ourselves very much vigilant, strong.
Continue.
Strength. The spiritual strength is a chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and following the rules and regulations. Then Maya cannot. Mam evaye prapadante Maya metam tarantite. If you keep yourself strictly to the principles of Bhakti Yoga, Maya's father also will not be able to do anything.
Maya's father is Krishna only.
No. So here it is said, Bhajan apakvota pate tato yadi, not always. If sometimes one fall down without, then yatrupana abhadram abhut amushyakim, then what is the loss there? He is not a loser, still he is gainer. Because for the time being, whatever he has done sincerely serving Krishna, that is credited forever, eternally. It will be never lost. Mind that. Do sincerely and you will never lost. Kaunteya pradijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Krishna says, my dear Arjun, you declare it that none of my devotees will ever be vanquished. I'll give you protection.
Continue.
Aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami. So do it sincerely. Don't think that even if I fall, there is no loss. No, don't think like that. Why I shall fall? I have taken to Krishna's shelter. Why shall you give it up? This is my life. But even if you fall down, that is also said. So there is no loss. There is no loss because suppose if you have executed 50%, 50% you could not do, you fall down again. In another place, it is also said, Yoga Brashta Vijayate Shichinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. Yoga Brashta, falling down from devotional service, he gets next chance again. he gets birth in a very good family, rich family, and pure family, Brahmana family. So that's again he will be given chance. Now you begin again. These are explained. You will find. Therefore, Narad Muni says that even if he is for the time being failure, then there is no
No
loss.
loss. Okay, so Prabhupada has explained it. Okay, fine. Now let's go to 41. व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिरेकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखा हि अनन्तश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Purport.
A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Shraddha Shabde Vishwasaka hai Sudrida Nishchaya Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita hai. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's actions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, the renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches. So by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in the famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutopi, dhyayan suvam tasya yashastri sandhyam vande guru shri charanaravindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts.
So again, this is also telling about the quality of Bhakti Yoga. The quality of Bhakti Yoga is that one who takes to this path, those who are on this path especially refers to the path of Bhakti Yoga, is resolute in purpose. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. So he wants to achieve Krishna, so therefore he is resolute on this path. And those who are not, then the intelligence is many branch, Bhaushaka. What is the historical significance of this verse for us? Yes, so this verse is historically very important for us because the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti to this verse is what very much inspired Srila Prabhupada to follow the instruction that he received from his spiritual master. How many years back? Yes, 1922 to 1965. How much? Yes. So the instruction which he received so many years back, though it was always there in the back of his mind, he was always contemplating on it. But then the determination, Vyavasayatmika buddhi, to follow that actually arose when Srila Prabhupada read the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur to this verse. So let's read that.
Moreover, among all types of intelligence, that intelligence concentrated on Bhakti Yoga is the best. Resolute intelligence fixed in Bhakti Yoga is only one. The meaning of this is illustrated as follows. My sadhana is to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, to remember and glorify Him as instructed by my Guru. That is also my goal, sadhya. It is my life sustaining medicine, for I cannot give up the sadhana and the sadhya. This is my most desirable object, my duty, and nothing else in my
Nothing
else is my duty. Nothing else is desired, even in dreams. There may be happiness or sorrow. Samsara may be destroyed or may not be destroyed. That is no loss for me. Let there only be resolute intelligence fixed in pure bhakti.
So as he's explaining, this is intelligence concentrated on Bhakti Yoga. So this is specifically referring to intelligence concentrated on Bhakti Yoga. That's the best. And that resolute intelligence fixed in Bhakti Yoga is only one. And of course, every sentence of it is so powerful, actually. My sadhana is to serve the lotus feet of the Guru, to remember and glorify Him as instructed by my Guru. And that is also my goal, sadhya. Sadhana and sadhya are the same. So I follow the instructions of the Guru for what? For what? To continue to follow. Therefore, when Srila Prabhupada was asked, what is the goal of chanting Hare Krishna? Chanting Hare Krishna. So this is the basic difference between the material conception and the spiritual conception. So in the material conception, always there's a conception that I do something to achieve something. Correct? I study engineering to become an engineer. So if you ask the engineering student, what you will gain by studying engineering, continue to study. You'll say, forget it then. If I have to continue studying, why should I study? So everyone has a conception of achieving something. Of course, sometimes that contamination may even come in our practices of bhakti. So though we do say that the ultimate goal of a practice of bhakti is to achieve prema, but actually the prema is in the service itself. It's not something separate from the service. The devotional service itself can be practiced either on the platform of sadhana or sadhya. The example of the green mango and the ripe mango. And we won't get into that discussion. But the point is that such is the emphasis on simply rendering the service that the sadhana and the sadhya are the same. And to emphasize on how important it is to follow those instructions, he's saying it is life-sustaining medicine. Because just like, why is giving that example? So just like if somebody has a chronic cancer and he's on chemotherapy, how important is that medicine? How important is the medicine? It's his life. The moment he's going to stop that medicine, life is going to be finished. So similarly, for a sadhaka practicing devotional service, how important are the instructions of the spiritual master? Just like the life-sustaining medicine. That means without following that, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Spiritual life will be dead. And there are many instructions, many quotes of Srila Prabhupada to that effect. So we'll discuss in some further classes. This is my most desirable object, my duty, and nothing else is my duty. Nothing else is desired even in dreams. So a devotee, even in dreams, he doesn't think of anything else other than following the instructions of the Guru. And that is apratihata, without any interruption, without any motivation. Ahaituki apratihata, that's the meaning. There is no motive, there is no other goal, and no interruption. Therefore, he says, there may be happiness or sorrow, samsara may be destroyed or may not be destroyed. So samsara may be destroyed, not be destroyed means what? What does it mean? One could get liberation or no liberation. Liberation may be there, liberation may not be there. But in either case, there could be happiness, there could be sorrow, victory, defeat, whatever may be the situation, I will still continue to follow the instructions of my Guru. That is mean of apratihata bhakti. No interruption. One simply continues. Let there only be resolute intelligence fixed in pure bhakti. So in that context, I definitely have quoted this in some class, I don't remember. Maybe Bhagavatam class or somewhere I quoted this. But on March 6th of 1966, I mentioned this, right? No? Okay. On March 6th of 1966, Srila Prabhupada wrote in his diary. Sudhanshu Prabhu remembers. Yes, the Gaur Purnima was on the next day, March 7th. On March 6th, Prabhupada wrote. Right, so Srila Prabhupada writes that, but I am alone here in New York. But then Srila Prabhupada says, but I have no inconvenience because I'm simply trying to follow the instructions of Krishna and my spiritual master. And for doing so, I'm even ready to go to hell. That's what Prabhupada writes. I'm even ready to go to hell. And of course, there are lectures also by Srila Prabhupada that says, devotees should not be afraid of even preaching in hell. A devotee is not afraid of anything. That's the personification of this verse. Most of us think, hopefully we'll be saved from hell by practice of bhakti, which is true. But then, that is Srila Prabhupada's determination. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada tells his early disciples, like Malti Mataji and these early disciples, Srila Prabhupada says when these devotees were offering nice prasadam to him in those early days, then Srila Prabhupada said, when he boarded the Jaladuta, he boarded with a bag of some cereal. And he says, at that time, for the rest of my life, I was ready to live on simply some cereal and boiled potato. Think about it. For us, one meal with something like that would be frustrating. But Prabhupada says, I was ready to live on that for the rest of my life. Then he says, but by Krishna's grace, there's nice prasadam. But that was Prabhupada's determination. That is Vyavasayatmika intelligence. at any cost one is ready to follow, irrespective of the conditions. So very powerful commentary. And Srila Prabhupada followed it to the word, literally. Otherwise, who could do what Srila Prabhupada did in such a short span of time? Humanly impossible. That's what Prabhupada did. Totally, fully empowered by Krishna, because that was his determination. Then Krishna fully empowered him. Now, so these two verses, Krishna speaks about Bhakti Yoga. And now, beginning from the 42nd verse till the 53rd verse, this entire section, the theme is this: Krishna minimizes karma kand. This is the theme. So in this entire section, now what Krishna tries to do is, previously he spoke about karma kand, correct? 31 to 38, he spoke about karma kand. And now he's trying to raise Arjuna's consciousness from karma kand to karma yoga. Karma yoga. And that's the entire theme of this section. In different ways, with various examples, Krishna is basically trying to elevate Arjuna's consciousness from karma kand to karma yoga. Fine. So let's recite 40 to 43. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipashitaha vedavadarata partha nanyad astiti vadinaha kamatmanam svargapara janma karma falapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogeshwarya gatim prati. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous for sense gratification, opulent life, they say that there's nothing more than this. Okay, so these are the karma kandis who are very much attracted to the pushpitam vacham. But of course, Prabhupada explains this pushpitam vacham, they're attracted to the flowers, but they don't know that these are poisonous flowers. You have seen datura flowers? They look quite beautiful, isn't it? They look quite beautiful, colorful. But what are they? Poisonous. So just like that. So what is this Pushpitam Vacham referring to? What is it specifically referring to? Karmakand. Karmakand. It's specifically referring to Karmakand. That's what Prabhupada writes. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they're most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karmakanda portion of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratification proposals for enjoying life in heaven. Wine and women are available. Material opulence is very common. So that's what. And further down, Prabhupada is given this example. As fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the results of such attractions, unenlightened men are similarly attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. And then he's describing about the heavenly planets. So what is going to be the result of such attachment to sense gratification and opulence of the heavens? Next verse. Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya parita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment, material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. As Prabhupada writes, Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment and bewildered by such temporary things. They're more or less condemned by the process of material energy. So what is the connection between this Bhoga Aishwarya and Samadhi? Okay, so right. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada has written, Krishna consciousness and sense gratification go ill together. So one of them has to reduce, then the other will increase. There's an inverse proportion. Sense gratification reduces, Samadhi in Krishna increases. Sense gratification increases, Samadhi reduces. Right? So both cannot go together. One thing has to reduce. So therefore, he says in the next verse, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, or Arjuna. Become transcendental to these three modes, be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Okay, so again, Traigunya Vishaya Veda is basically referring to all these Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda sections of the Vedas, which are mainly dealing with the three modes and attachment to material things. So therefore, Krishna is telling me, rise above this material platform. All this is material platform. Rise above this and become transcendental, nistraigunyo. And rise above all these dualities. Material platform is dualities, dvandva. Material platform is dualities. Gain, loss, honor, dishonor, respect, disrespect. So material platform means dualities. So Krishna is telling, rise above this. Be situated in the self, on the spiritual platform. Otherwise, everything else is material platform. And Prabhupada is describing how first there is karma kand. All the living entities, I'm reading in between the first paragraph. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. You saw that? So that is what is the purpose of the Vedas, to gradually elevate from material platform to transcendental platform. Arjuna is a student and friend of Lord Krishna's advice to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where in the beginning there is Brahma Jigyasa, or question on the supreme transcendence. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. For them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom advising how to live and get rid of material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, that's Jnana Kanda, which are part of different Vedas. As the Bhagavad Gita is part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata, the Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. Okay. So as long as the material body exists, then there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities. Okay, so that's material platform, dualities. And this transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness, when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. Now, to understand this concept, Krishna is giving an analogy. So you find this is Krishna's way of teaching. Krishna gives some Siddhanta, and he also gives analogies to explain the Siddhanta. We find this at various places in the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore we find Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, they follow the same system. Siddhanta, then immediately examples, analogies. So that's the way we should present. Yavan artha udapane sarvata sampludodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. Okay? So here is giving an analogy. What is the analogy? Yavan artha udapani. Udapani means well. So he says there could be different wells. I don't know how many of you have experience of living in a village. But in a village, you'll find that there is a well for drinking water, there's a well for washing clothes, like that there are different wells. So the well which has sweet water is used for drink, and then for other purposes, other wells are there. But then here Krishna says, but if there is a big reservoir of water, like a big pond or a river, then everything can be done over there. Everything can be done over there. So you find, you go to Mayapur, you see on the banks of the Ganges, people are doing everything, from washing clothes to washing their buffaloes, and everything else. And they use the same water for drinking also. Ganges water is used for drinking. Of course, it may be purified, but it's the same water. So similarly, he says, so there may be all this karma kand, jnana kanda, upasana kanda, all this may be there. But for one who comes to the transcendental platform of understanding the supreme absolute truth, then there is no need to perform all these other things. Brahmanasya vijanataha, one who knows. Brahmanasya, of a man who knows the supreme Brahman, Vijanata, who's in complete knowledge. So for one who knows the supreme Brahman, who has come to the transcendental platform, then there is no need of performing all this karma kanda, jnana kanda, upasana kanda, all that. So that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Rise above these lower platforms, come to the topmost platform. Okay, please read the second paragraph of the purport.
So one must be.
Hmm.
So one must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only, and without being attached to the rituals only, and must not be desired to be elevated to the heavenly kingdoms for the better quality of sense gratification. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals, nor is it possible to study all the Vedanta and Upanishads thoroughly. It requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resources to execute the processes of Vedas. This is hardly possible in this age. The best process of Vedic culture is the best purpose of Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of Lord, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of all fallen souls. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by a great Vedic scholar, Prakashadan Saraswati, why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist instead of studying Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master had found him to be a great fool and thus asked him to chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. He did so and became ecstatic like a madman. In this age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adequately educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in the Vedic wisdom, and the author of the lore of the Vedanta philosophy is the Lord Krishna. And the highest Vedantist is the great soul who take pleasure in chanting the name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism.
Okay, so therefore, so who's going to perform all this karma kand, jnana kand, upasana kand? Who's going to do all this in this current age? So of course, in any age, the principle applies. The principle is that if one comes to the transcendental platform, then it is understood that one has performed all the lower stages. So Srila Prabhupada gives the example that just like if one is a high court judge, then there is no need to ask him, have you passed school and college? It's understood. So similarly, one who has come to the transcendental platform is understood that he has passed through all the lower stages. And so that is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering the topmost. Whether one has gone through these stages or no, that's a side matter. That's not important, but he's offering the topmost. And so then when one has got the topmost, then one need not bother about the lower stages. But in any case, here Krishna is advising Arjuna to rise above the lower platforms of Karmakand, Jnanakand and come to the transcendental platform. Okay, fine. So we'll stop our discussions here. Continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samvid Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Okay, so what's the future plan? Say it in the mic, everyone can hear.
So devotees have till now, tomorrow there would be one session, Sunday would be a break, and at least devotees have agreed till Wednesday. Again, we'll be checking with few more devotees, those are not present here, whether 1-2 days more could be extended after Wednesday.
Fine. So when that will be confirmed?
Till tonight.
Today evening. Fine. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We will try to finish. Maybe a little bit difficult to finish the second chapter tomorrow, but we'll try to finish at least most of it. And then at least 3 classes will be required for third chapter. Of course, our policy is how much of a time you give, will fit things, tailor it to that time. Krishna consciousness is like cotton ball. You can compress, you can expand. Hare Krishna.